So it's nearly time for Total War Troy, the saga title set in the Bronze Age Trojan War. Recently I was given access to a demo build of the game where we got to play just a single battle as either Hector of Troy or Achilles. So we're going to take a look at that battle, but instead of you just watching me play it, we're going to dissect it a little bit and see what they've done to make Troy battles interesting. Is it going to be too fantasy for historical purists? And will it be exciting enough focusing around infantry? Let's find out. So first of all, Troy is built on the Warhammer engine, I believe. So a bit more modern, a bit more polished than some of the older engines like what Thrones of Britannia was built on, the Attila engine. So just much better feeling battles overall, maybe a bit faster. Now, one of the first things that's getting more emphasis is the map and the terrain and all the effects that it brings. Trees, for example, like these, now provide a 40% missile block chance whenever any unit is in trees. So it provides kind of a cover system for your own tactical use. There's also long grass patches like this, which light infantry can hide inside to set up some cheeky ambushes perhaps. There's also a couple of new terrain types, mud and sand. Mud, which you can see over here, reduces the movement speed of infantry crossing over it. However, it has little effect on light troops as they are not very heavy, and a pretty massive effect on heavy troops because they're weighed down by their armor, so they move much more slowly through the mud, allowing light troops a great opportunity to outmaneuver heavy troops in mud. There's also sand terrain, not that this is actually it. While it is sand, we can clearly see it's sand, but it doesn't actually have a tooltip when you scroll over it. So I'm not sure that that's the sand that will actually affect anything, but there is sand terrain, which impacts the speed of all units. But I don't know too much about that because there wasn't any on the map. Now, Troy's Bronze Age warfare focuses around the infantry. There are some chariots as well, and a little bit of cavalry, but it's mostly infantry and chariots. And they will be led by your fearless hero. This is your general, your lord, whatever you want to call it. In Troy, it's called a hero, the one who leads your army into battle. There's also mythical creatures, like this Minotaur here, who is basically just a man, so not too crazy in the fantasy, but he is obviously a very powerful man. Look at him, he's huge, he's got a massive axe, and a freaking bull skull on his face. So both of those are single entity characters, powerful heroes like in Three Kingdoms or in Warhammer, who are definitely very strong, but are by no means going to be soloing an entire army or anything. So taking a look at Hector of Troy here, close up, he has a bunch of abilities, much like Lords and Heroes in any other Total War really, and his variety of abilities mostly in the form of buffs for himself and his troops. He does have a kind of healing ability for himself and troops, which is obviously very fantasy. Pause the video and have a read if you wish. Heroes also have the Aristia ability, which is kind of an ultimate ability for them. You can see what it does for Hector, makes him unbreakable, gives him no cooldown, so he gets unlimited abilities basically. And as we can read at the top, Aristia is the greatest exploit for a hero. In order to perform one, the hero must gather enough Aristia points. It is earned by using battle abilities and generating rage. Aristia can only be used once per battle. So like I said, kind of an ultimate ability that if used at the right time could be a pretty big game changer. In the bottom left here, we also have the Rage meter. Heroes gain rage when fighting. Each battle ability requires an amount of rage to be used. So you'll need to earn your rage by throwing your hero into battle, but you'll have to be careful about where you throw him in case he gets in a bad matchup and gets beaten up and routed off or killed. So it's a nice balance of, do I want to put him into melee to earn these abilities, or should I keep him out for now and not have the abilities? Now, just for some perspective, let's take a look at Achilles and his abilities. He has one which will force an enemy hero to duel with him and to make them fight him, which obviously he's very strong at. So that's one of his strengths he can play on. So if you take a look at Achilles' abilities, you'll notice that a lot more of them are geared just towards making Achilles better and stronger. He doesn't really support too much. He's got this one ability which does kind of support his troops, but most of them are all about him. So he's less of a supportive hero like Hector is, which obviously has its pros and cons. He's not going to be as supportive for his troops, but he is going to be better at taking out the enemy hero, potentially. So you could bring whoever you want for what kind of playstyle you want to bring for your army. And there are going to be a bunch of other heroes as well. These two are just epic heroes, so they're like special, like legendary lords. There's heroes geared towards being more offensive, more defensive, maybe more from range, different options available. Achilles' Aristia ability is the same as Hector's at the moment. Maybe that'll change, or maybe it'll stay the same and it'll just kind of be a powerful buff for any hero to gain when they need it, if they've earned it, of course. Now, how will these heroes interact with each other out on the battlefield? Well, it's not quite like Three Kingdoms, where you have to initiate a formal duel. If two characters are near each other, they will kind of enter a Three Kingdoms style duel with proper animations, but it's just a kind of impromptu thing. You can run away and leave whenever you want without any kind of penalty, I think, which creates a nice natural feel to the fights between heroes, and in my opinion is much better than having the formal Three Kingdoms style duels, and other units will get out the way. They'll just let the two heroes fight. A nice improvement to the duel system, I think. And for a mythical unit like the Minotaur, he's just very powerful in melee, great at killing the infantry, also has the Savage Roar ability which reduces enemy morale, so mostly brute force damage but some tactical play with the use of his abilities. So you've got your hero leading the army, you might have some mythical units as stronger support units, and then the bulk of your army is going to be infantry with a bit of chariots and cavalry action. As infantry is going to be the bulk of many armies, it feels like there's more disparity between the weight classes of units. Their strengths and weaknesses are more prominent based on how heavy they are. This gives them more of a specific role for their weight, and some will be given unique bonuses to help make them that little bit different. Infantry comes in the 3 different main types: light, medium, heavy. This is nothing new, this has been in pretty much every Total War, but there hasn't been as much emphasis on it as there is in Troy. So light troops, obviously less armor means less protection, not as tough, but they are much quicker, and they are the only unit type that can hide in the tall grass or shrubs. They don't get affected by mud as much, as I mentioned earlier. They don't suffer from fatigue as quickly as the other troops do. So overall, a much more maneuverable weight class that can use those things to their advantage. For the medium troops, they're kind of somewhere in the middle between light and heavy. They've got some protection, they're going to be a little bit slower than the light troops of course, but they're going to be heavier, so they'll hit a bit harder when they charge in, and the extra mass will help them not get tossed around so much when charged into by other things. And for the heavy boys, as you can imagine, they are much tougher, they can fight for longer. They will get fatigued quicker though, they can't move as quickly over certain kinds of terrain, over the mud, up hills, so they're not going to be great for flanking or maneuvering quickly, going to be a sturdy front line or protectors of your flank if you need them. They are going to be nice and heavy though, lots of mass, so they'll be able to charge in and hit very hard, and also be able to take charges from chariots and cavalry and things and not get knocked around all over the place, so they can become kind of a wall. Some units as well will have the ability to switch into some kind of alternate attack mode. With these, they can switch between having their shield out and protecting themselves with it, or to two-handing their spear so that they can do more damage. So this unit can be kind of dual role. It can sit on the front line with its shield out, absorb some missiles, fight any infantry that comes its way, or it could sit on the flank, get its spears out and be more anti-cav or anti-chariot. You may have also noticed that the stats changed when we switched weapon mode. Oh, that poor fellow just got an arrow in the face. Look like somebody threw it at him. Poor fella. So now that arrows are starting to fly in on us, we're going to switch back. You can see we've got 150 weapon strength at the moment. When we switch, it goes down to 110, but we're going to have our shield out. So our melee defense has gone up. We're going to be much better at holding the line and staying alive. So yeah, nice that some units will have the option to switch between different roles that they want to do, making some units, nice and versatile. You may get something like this, a light damage dealer infantry which has a two-handed spear, which is very quick on its feet at 55 speed, that's nearly as fast as some heavy cavalry in other Total Wars, but it has the charger trait, which means it's great at charging in, but not so good at staying and fighting in melee. So you'll want to cycle charge them, kind of like the Nodachi Samurai in Shogun 2. You may get a unit like this one, which is very quick, very fast, lots of damage on the charge, very dangerous, and it has stalk, so it can sneak around and won't be detected until it's right on top of the enemy, allowing for some nice flanking and ambushing. So there's a few types of units with different roles, you can see the variation between them. I do have another video that came out with this one, going through all the units in this demo in detail, so you can check that out. I'll link it at the end if you wish to have a look. So yeah, it's going to be all about the infantry and how you use them, how creative you can get to gain advantages, how you can take the terrain into account and use that to gain an advantage as well. And then there's the different faction and the variety between them. There are going to be 8 factions in the game, all different somewhat in their playstyle, based on what their army has. So Achilles, for example, for Thea, his faction has a wide variety of troops, lots of light troops in there, so his army can be very fast and maneuverable if he wants. Good versatility. Whereas Hector of Troy and his army are much more sturdy and defensive. They don't really have many light units at all. It's all medium and heavy. So they're probably not going to be winning battles through being maneuverable, but rather through outlasting their opponent just by being so tough. So 2 very different playstyles there from these 2 different factions. We'll have to see what they can do with the other 6 to try and make them somewhat unique. But yeah, it's nice to have that faction variety. And then we have the mythical units. It's not just minotaurs and single characters that are going to be mythical units. This cavalry that you can see here, these are savage centaur warriors. As a centaur is obviously a mythical thing that's half horse, half man, these are just kind of tribal looking men on horseback. So it's a play on the myth of centaurs, the half man, half horse beast. So it's adding some mythological fantasy in there without it being unrealistic, which is kind of cool. We'll have to see what other kind of thing they bring in for the mythical units, whether it'll be infantries or more single characters or archers maybe. Who knows? So battles are really going to be all about maneuvering that infantry, trying to get the good matchups and really using the map to your advantage, more so than ever before. Learning to take advantage of the tall grass and the mud and the hills and the trees. Like I said, trees give a 40% missile block chance, which is huge. They also slow down large units as well, so any chariots or horses that try to come into the forest are going to struggle. And that is about it for the information I can give you from this battle. This was a setup battle, this is all we got to play, one battle, one map. The armies were pre-made so we couldn't change anything, no campaign or anything like that. The only thing we could change was which faction we played or whether it was easy or hard. So overall, if you want my worthless opinion, it's an interesting spot for a Total War game, as it is more infantry focused like a historical title maybe, but it's much faster paced like Warhammer is, which may put some people off and have historical purists reaching for their keyboard in anger, but I think you have to remember that this isn't anything new for Total War historical titles. Shogun 2 for example has pretty fast paced battles, and was also fairly infantry focused. Maybe not as much as this, and maybe because there is so much focus on infantry and maneuvering, maybe the battles in Troy do need to be a touch slower, but overall I don't think it's a massive problem. The other thing I meant to mention earlier was that shields are now very, very powerful. Some large shields can block 75% of missiles, which is absolutely huge, and it's going to make it a complete waste to shoot at these shielded units from the front, so you will need to maneuver and flank them and try and shoot them in the back if you want to make good use of your ammo. So there's going to be plenty of things to think about in these Troy battles with all the infantry focus, which should hopefully keep them interesting. Honestly, before I played it, I wasn't really that excited for Troy. I didn't enjoy Thrones of Britannia at all. I didn't really like Three Kingdoms battles very much. I kinda got bored quick with those, but with this, because we've got all the terrain stuff and a little bit more to think about with the infantry, I personally think I could get into this after playing it a little bit more. We'll have to see how it turns out in the end, but so far, so good I think. So there it is, Total War Troy, the new Saga title. To me, a way more exciting prospect than Thrones of Britannia was. Didn't really enjoy that game at all, sorry Thrones. So it'll be exciting to see how the campaign and things turn out, and whether these Saga titles are worth the time they're putting into them. Or whether CA just need to shut the hell up with all this Saga shit and just give us Medieval 3 already. And on that note, let me know what you think. I already know that you want Medieval 3, you don't need to comment that, I already know. But what do you think of Troy? Were you excited about Total War Troy before this video? Or before you saw anything about it? Are you more excited now that you know a bit more about it, at least on the battle side? How do you feel? Let me know, I'm curious. Thanks for watching people, I hope you've enjoyed this. I will see you in the future.